Mr. Transformers 96 here with another end of the year video. This time I'm going to be doing my ranking of all the Studio Series figures that I've purchased this year from my least favorite to my favorite. So I started this last year, considering that was the first year that the Studio Series was actually in effect, and I kind of ranked all the figures that I purchased from my least favorite to my favorite. I figured that I'd do it again this year, considering I bought just as many Studio Series figures, if not a couple more. And yeah, so very excited to do this. I'm really enjoying the Studio Series. I think that they have really great figures, and we're able to get a lot of the characters that we never got before, finally for the first time, and then we're also getting figures that were a little disappointing before, finally done right, so it's quite exciting. I purchased quite a lot of the Studio Series figures that came out, not all of them though. I purchased 2 of the 3 leader class figures that came out this year, and then I purchased all of the Voyagers, and then with the Deluxes I purchased probably a little bit more than half of them. So I purchased a lot of the Studio Series figures, but again, I didn't purchase all of them. But yeah, so I'll be ranking them from my least favorite to my favorite, and of course I'll be doing this again next year, as there are plenty of awesome Studio Series figures coming out next year, and hopefully I'll have a completed Devastator to include on the list. But there you go, here's just a portion of my Transformers collection. I have all of my Constructicons on a different shelf, but for now, here are the Studio Series figures, and let's get ranking. And taking that last spot has to be the KSI Boss. This figure deserves the lowest place on the list simply because it is a repaint, and it shouldn't just be a repaint. The original figure came out as a Nitro Zeus figure, but it was really just a KSI Boss figure that wasn't quite accurate. So they took the same mold, which is a good mold. Obviously, it's very KSI Boss-like, and they decide to make a KSI Boss figure in the Studio Series line. However, they didn't change anything to make it the KSI Boss, which is unfortunate because the major thing that they would have had to change, and I would say the only thing that they would have to change, is a new head sculpt. Just do it the proper head sculpt from the movie, which is essentially the same faceplate. It's just a different back plate that has like a little pointing sections that go outwards like a hammerhead shark. And that would be the only thing that they'd have to do to make this a good figure. But unfortunately, they didn't even do that. Now, I do like the new paint on this figure. I think that the silver is really great, and that's the redeeming quality of it, is that it has really nice paint, but it's a very lazy figure when it is very easy to make it like really accurate. So that's definitely why this one gets last place. Alright, in the 12th place we have the 2007 Optimus Prime Voyager figure. So this is the Optimus Prime that's supposed to be in the 2007 kind of deco. Now, I'm not considering the Jetfire add-ons of this part of the figure. I'm only judging the figure itself, and let me be honest, the figure's not bad. The reason that I have it so low, though, is that it just annoys me that they made you buy a whole nother Optimus Prime just to combine it with Jetfire, considering the ports that were, combined were really subtle things that they could have included on the Jetfire figure just to attach and to snap on, but instead they made you buy a whole new figure to do this, when just like in the previous wave or the wave before it, we got an Optimus Prime in this exact same scale, and it's almost the exact same figure. So it just really annoys me that they made you purchase another figure in order to complete this look, considering it's a cheap money grab. So that's why this figure is the low on this list, and the figure itself is okay, but again, it's not any better than any other Optimus Prime figure that we have. It's not better than the Optimus Prime that's further up on this list as well. So overall, definitely annoying because of how kind of cheap it's been constructed. And next up we have Scrap Metal, one of the Constructicons. This is the Constructicon that I find my least favorite of the year, and probably overall. I'd be very surprised if another Constructicon comes out and it's not, and it's worse than this one. This one isn't like a horrible figure by any means, but it's just not that good. It's something that doesn't really even have concept art base on it, so they can kind of do whatever they wanted with it, and nobody would really complain because we don't even see the character in the film. And he's an okay figure. He's very small, though. His hands are a little lazy. They're really just scoops, and there's just not a whole lot going on with him. So although it's impressive that he's a triple changer, considering one of the modes they don't need to make look accurate at all, because there's not really an accurate for it. It just makes it very easy for them, so it makes the fact that this is a triple changer just not as impressive as the other triple changers for sure. In 10th spot, this is kind of where the list changes and shifts to being really good figures, because the first three are kind of like ones that were disappointing, and now we have all the ones that are good, and just kind of ranking the good ones, essentially. But here we have Barricade. This is a good figure again. It's a good figure. It's just, this is like the 900 Barricade figure, so it better be good at this point. So it just kind of makes it less special that it is good, just because they've made so many others, and there have been good Barricades in the past, and this one, I would say, is an improvement, really, just based on the proportions of it. However, it's not anything super new or amazing or anything like that, but it is a good figure, and therefore, you know, deserving in the good section of this list. Alright, in the 9th spot here we have Megatron from Dark of the Moon. This is a leader class figure. Overall, this is a pretty good figure. It has a lot going for it, but it just needs some tweaks to really make it great. First of all, the cape section that it comes with is very paperish. I wish that it was more cloth-like and therefore haned better, because it kind of just, especially in the back, just kind of shoots up in the back when it should drape, and unfortunately it doesn't drape. And then the paint I find a little lackluster too. It's a lot of very sectioning paint. You've got sections of gray, sections of tan, and then in certain sections of tan there's like a copperish kind of fade to it, but it's very like mechanically done. Like, it doesn't look like it's battle damage or kind of dirt. It just looks like it's a mechanical fade, which is just a little odd. So, you know, with better paint and with a better cape, this thing would have definitely made it up higher on this list, but at the moment it does make it to 9th place. Next up, we have the Deluxe Shatter from the Bumblebee movie. This is a far better interpretation of this character compared to the first interpretation of Dropkick, who was horrible. So my fears for what the Shatter figure might look like were definitely rose. However, the actual figure is much better, so I'm definitely liking this figure. The only thing that I kind of put it a little lower on the list for is the fact that it's a little just kind of tiny. There's a lot of paneling on the back, and then the main thing that I don't like about it is the face sculpt. Although Shatter does have a mask in the film, you have to freeze the frame and like zoom into the background to actually see any shot of her with the mask on. For, you know, 99% of the movie, there's no mask, and for any clear shot of the character, there's no mask. So the fact that they make the mask on the first attempt, I think, is stupid. There's another version of Shatter rumored to come out that has a alt mode of the jet, and I'm sure that'll have the proper face sculpt, but that's the main reason I put this one a little lower, is because of the mask. However, the figure itself is quite good. Taking that 7th spot, we have Dropkick. I considered putting Dropkick a little lower than Shatter, just because it sucks that it took 2 attempts to actually get the figure right. However, if I am just basing it on the figures themselves, the Dropkick figure is better than the Shatter figure. I do think that the proportions are quite nice. I'm a big fan of the really dark, deep blue, like royal blue that's on this thing. I think it looks really good, and it pops from all the black pieces, which I think look quite nice. And overall, it's a great interpretation of Dropkick, and again, far better than the horrible jet mode one that came out last year, which made it as my least favorite of the Studio Series figures on my list last year. So yeah, much bigger improvement, and definitely deserving a good spot on the list. Alright, now we have our second Constructicon on the list, and it is Hightower. This one shares some similarities to the scrap metal one, because it is a character that was not actually seen in the movie. But however, the difference between him and scrap metal is like, there really isn't any concept art for it. Like, you might be able to find one shot of it or something, but there's just not much of it. With Hightower, though, there's some decent concept art images, and this figure very much represents the concept art, and therefore they had a goal that they were, you know, striving towards, and they had a certain look to actually hit with this figure, unlike scrap metal in my opinion. And I think that this figure looks really good, and it's really unique too, which I definitely like, and that's something that makes it pop in the collection, which is again why it ranks so much higher than scrap metal. I also think that the face sculpt is really cool, so I'm a big fan of that. So overall, it's similar to scrap metal, however, its execution and what it was based off of is at a much higher standard than scrap metal, and therefore definitely gets a decent spot on this list, and just such a unique Transformer that anything unique I'm always a fan of, and this one definitely hits that unique box. So yeah. And coming in the 5th spot, we have Bone Crusher. This is a really nice figure. I really do enjoy it, and it's a character that actually really needed an update. Because with all like the movie 1 Decepticon figures. We've had a lot of versions of them in the past, and even if it's in different scales or whatever, we've had a lot of different versions of those figures. But Bone Crusher, you know, you kind of forget about it, but Bone Crusher actually really only has the one. He's got the one deluxe one that was released in 2007, and they've repainted it a few times, but they've never actually done another version of him or another scale or anything like that. So now we're finally getting one that's in a more accurate scale, being a Voyager scale, that's just really accurate in general, with accurate arms, and it just looks great. My only issue with the figure is that the claws themselves are very subtle. Like in car mode it looks fine, but I wish that he came with interchangeable claws to put on when you transformed him that looked aggressive. That would have been really nice. But overall, this is a wonderful update with a fantastic face sculpt, and an update I think a lot of people didn't even know that we quite needed until we got it, which is quite nice. Alright, in fourth place we have Jetfire. Yes, I didn't transform him into Jetfire. To be honest, just for this quick shot in the video, I didn't want to, you know, completely take off the Optimus Prime and transform him into Jetfire. However, I'm only considering him as Jetfire and not this Optimus Prime here. But the Jetfire figure is quite good. I'm definitely a fan of it. I do not have the original Jetfire from Revenge of the Fallen. It was a figure that I missed out on, and I've always regretted it. So to get a new version was great, and it is a version that's improved, I think. I think that it looks quite nice. I think the proportions are very cool on it, and it's quite a big leader class figure. I feel like a lot of the leader class figures in the Studio Series line are a little smaller, to be honest. However, this Jetfire was not the case. He was quite large, quite bulky, and quite nice in that respect. As well as it is cool that he is a bit of a triple changer with the fact that you can combine him with Optimus Prime, and that's a bonus for Jetfire, while with Optimus Prime, it's the only reason for the figure. So that's why this one definitely makes it a lot higher, and why the triple mode is a bonus for Jetfire and a weakness for Optimus Prime. Overall, really enjoy the figure. I'm hoping to get another version of him, or another figure of him, just to display him as Jetfire, so I can have Optimus like this as well as Jetfire. But overall, quite a nice figure, and deserving a pretty good spot on the list. And now in bronze place we have Rampage, another Constructicon. So this is quite cool. Rampage, I enjoy in the film, however the figure of that we've had from Revenge of the Fallen was left a lot to be desired. It is very inaccurate, even the fact that the color scheme was completely inaccurate. There was a lot more that I could have wanted with it. This is a new rendition of him, which is perfect in my opinion. I don't know how you could make a Rampage figure more perfect than this, in my opinion, at least at this price point. I think that it's ideal. First of all, they obviously corrected the colors. He is red and not yellow, like the other figure. As well as he includes the gun in the hand. He actually includes fingers, which look very accurate to the film. He doesn't have a big backpack piece with claws on it to help him stand. He comes with a simple platform which just inserts itself into the bottom of his like one toe, and therefore he stands perfectly. It's the ideal figure. It also has a great head sculpt, maybe one of my favorite head sculpts of the year, I'd say, from the Studio Series, if not my favorite. I think it's really solid and extremely accurate, and just overall, this is the way that you do a figure. And even though he doesn't have any elbow articulation for obvious reasons, he is still incredibly poseable. I had probably the most fun with this figure taking photos of. As far as any of the other figures, I had the most fun with this one. There's just a lot you can do with them, and I considered putting him a little higher in the list. However, there's some really strong competition, and therefore I didn't. However, it's a great figure, definitely deserving the top 3. And in second place, we have the Bumblebee movie Voyager class Optimus Prime. After having so many Optimus Prime figures, I'm surprised that another one came out that I enjoyed so much. But I think this is a fantastic Optimus Prime. It's a very kind of classic G1 movie kind of combination of the character, which I think is very cool. And I think the execution of the figure is quite nice. It's something that has a lot more of a slick look to it, which is really represented nicely here in the figure. And that's hard when you have to make it transform as well. But I think that they nailed it. I think the face sculpt's quite good. I really enjoy just the overall look of it. Although it is another, Optimus Prime, it's very different in its execution and in its look, and therefore I think is quite special. And really, it's extremely compact. Like, look at how flat this thing is. Like, man, there is just hardly no kibble on this whatsoever, which is extremely impressive, and definitely something that that is unique, and was something that's so clean in its design to really represent that without having a massive backpack that holds everything is really impressive. So overall, really enjoying this figure, and considered putting this one at number 1. However, just this is my personal list, and therefore there is another figure that I enjoyed a little bit more. However, really liked this one. Alright, my favorite Studio Series figure of the year is going to have to be Lawn Haul. There's some great ones this year for sure, but I really enjoyed Lawn Haul. Lawn Haul is a Constructicon that I really love, and was really excited to get another version of him. However, in my head, I always thought that the Revenge of the Fallen one was just a perfect figure for the most part. I really thought it was great, and therefore, like, I didn't really think that there would be much to improve upon. However, I love Lawn Haul, so I'm always, be accepting of another version. However, when I got this figure, I realized just how much was needed to be improved upon with the Revenge of the Fallen one, which is quite special when you take a figure that's already great, and then without them knowing that they needed anything different, you give them a new one that they think is even better. It's just, that's a big accomplishment, and something that I really love. I think this nails the proportions of Lawn Haul. It's a fantastic face sculpt. Again, this one and Rampage, I think, have just Lawn Haul, Rampage, and Bone Crusher just have really great face sculpts, and I absolutely love this one. I love the coloring too. This color scheme is so much better than the Revenge of the Fallen one, and the Revenge of the Fallen one looks silly to me now, and before this figure came out or was shown, the Revenge of the Fallen one looked great, so that's really impressive when a figure can do that. For me personally, I absolutely love this figure. The only issue I have with it is that it is a little small for a Voyager, and a little small for Lawn Haul. However, when you take into consideration that this figure has to transform into the leg for Devastator, which is a smaller build-a-figure, or a smaller piece on Devastator, you understand why they made it the size that they did. However, I think that the figure itself is just phenomenal, and therefore makes it as my favorite Studio Series figure of the year. Alright, so there's my ranking of the 13 Studio Series figures I purchased this year. This is a great year for the Studio Series, just as last year was, being its first year. And I'll continue to do this as long as the Studio Series stays alive. There's some great figures coming out for next year, and I have a ton on pre-order. So far, Shockwave is the one that I'm most looking forward to, but Scavenger, Megatron, Soundwave, and Mixmaster all look great as well, and I've got them all on pre-order. And hopefully, by next year, I'll also be including Devastator in this countdown, which would be really exciting. So there you go. That's my ranking for all the figures that were shown. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on my ranking, as well as how you guys would rank the ones that you picked up as well. Again, great year for Studio Series, and I did pick up the majority of the figures being released. Not all of them, but the majority of them I did. And so let me know what you guys think of them, and thanks so much for watching.